watching ET Now. The show is Startup Central, the first and only daily show in India dedicated to startups and entrepreneurship. I'm Ruchi Bhatia, and as always, we've got a power-packed show lined up for you over the next 20 minutes. So let's get started. And this, of course, was a big ET Now exclusive. We understand that the Tokyo-headquartered Softbank is looking for a possible transaction with Reliance for a stake in Jio. Sources are telling us that Softbank may invest $2 to $3 billion in the telecom player. My colleague Ajay Sharma from the research desk, who broke that story, and this story has been widely taken by every other platform as well. Ajay, let me first congratulate you on this, and secondly, Reliance has been publicly speaking about its plans to monetize the assets for a very long time, reduce debt. What are you gathering about it and the kind of impact that this is going to help in terms of pushing the entire e-commerce play by the Reliance Group?
Well, it can't get bigger than this. Markiest and the bluechest of the name Softbank's Vision Fund, we understand from our sources, is doing due diligence on Jio's business model, the entire business model of telecom towers, all the assets put together, and possible ventures from here on, the e-commerce splash they are planning. Today there was a report about the gigafiber being sent out on at the retail level in homes, which will have broadband, landline, as well as all the television offerings via the internet. So there's a huge plan which Jio has, and Softbank, which is a Masayoshi-san headed Tokyo headquartered company which invests in technology, telecom and e-commerce related plays across the world now, is wanting to invest. This particular initiative, we understand, is by Vision Fund, which is now led by Rajiv Mishra, based out of London. He's a former banker who helped raise about $100 billion overall fundraising, 45 being committed from the wealth fund of Saudi Arabia in one shot. So these kind of marquee names are doing due diligence. Why? Because it fits their philosophy. They usually back market leaders in technology, telecom, e-commerce related plays, which have very big scalable business models, and they understand that kind of business. They have Alibaba, Tencent kind of, Oyo Rooms kind of names in their portfolio. We understand the transaction could be sub $5 billion transaction. The money will be raised by Reliance to trim some debt, which they have gone on record that the plan is to trim debt going forward by asset monetization. For Softbank, it's a perfect kind of a company for their portfolio. We reached out to both of them and they of course did not wish to comment on it, but we understand that due diligence is on and a transaction may happen very soon going forward.
All right, Ajay, many thanks for getting in all those details. That was a big story that was broken by Ajay yesterday. It has been widely taken by all other platforms as well. And let us discuss this story in detail and the impact that this is going to have on the entire e-commerce space. And this is, of course, coming in at a time when Softbank has been actively involved in India through the Vision Fund. Remember, the India portfolio consists the likes of Paytm Mall, Oyo, Grofers, First Cry, Delivery, as well as Policy Bazaar. So let's get started. Joining me on the show is K. Vaithishwaran, the founder of IndiaPlaza.com, and also Harminder Sani, the founder of Wazir Advisors. Gentlemen, many thanks for taking your time out and speaking to us at ET Now. Let me take it across to Harminder Sani. Harminder, good evening. If you can hear me, how do you look at Softbank Vision's interest in Reliance Jio? This is, of course, coming in at a time that Softbank Vision Fund has invested heavily in India in the last couple of years. This is not pure play funding, but really a strategic one if one should look at it.
Oh, absolutely. Good evening, Ruchi. And this part, in terms of Softbank coming in there, I think clearly, if you ask, let me first comment on this, that how one should be looking at it. That when you look at Indian market, that so many international funds have been interested from US as well as from China, from Japan, putting money into our e-commerce world. And we always have been wondering that why Indian companies are not looking at very seriously and why Indian companies are not able to build something of our own like Chinese have done. So this is where now the largest company in India, Reliance, has somewhere stepped forward while they've been working on it silently and saying that here we are. So for people like SoftBank and with their kind of amount of money which they want to deploy, I think this is one of the best opportunities, which I would say till a few months ago, nobody would have thought was serious because Reliance has their own way of funding businesses, raising money and all of that. But, taking money from a company as SoftBank, I think it's more of a excitement from the SoftBank side that they are getting this opportunity to invest into something so robust, which is already built and which is now going to play out. And will be able to compete with the international biggies like Walmart and Amazon head on. And I think that is fantastic news for them. Reliance would have gone ahead and done what they are wanting to do anyway. So that's how I see it.
Absolutely, Harvinder, but help us understand, while yes, this is too early to talk, but then again, SoftBank would want to explore synergies with other portfolio companies in India as well as abroad. The entire combo of technology and telecom is really a distinct one, so to say.
I think see, when people like SoftBank, they will also be looking at differently, because when you are investing into startups, right? Here they are not investing into a startup. It's a startup or a very large incubated company within a very large conglomerate. So you cannot talk in terms of that how they are looking at synergies with other companies in their portfolio, because it's not a typical startup in which you are investing large amounts of money and forcing their hand or in a way encouraging them to explore synergies and look at possible consolidation and all of that. I think it's very different here, and they'll have to look at it very differently. So while it's coming from the fund where they invest into Paytms and those kind of companies where they're absolute startups and where the founders are left with very little equity very soon and hardly any control going forward, here it's a very different ball game. So I don't think same rules will apply here. And I also believe they are all very smart people, so they would have taken that into account. So this is funding into a battle, leaving everybody aside. This is the battle which you are getting into where there are three players: Amazon, Walmart, and Reliance. These are the safe players. The rest, everything below that is, I think, will be getting into a very quick consolidation mode, very, very quickly. And let's see how it plays out then between these three of them.
Absolutely. Harvinder, stay on the line with us. Also joining me now is Vaithishwaran, the co-founder of Again Drinks. Vaithishwaran, thanks for speaking to us. We did not have you on a good line earlier. I was asking you about, while in this deal, we're still waiting for more clarity whether this is going to come on the Jio side or the retail umbrella and the kind of role it is going to have as far as e-commerce space is concerned. But SoftBank would really want the pie of the e-commerce space given their previous investments in India, especially the likes of Paytm Mall as well as Flipkart that really haven't paid off how SoftBank would have wanted it to.
Yes, absolutely. What we have seen about SoftBank so far, the way they have made investments in multiple industries across the world, is that, they really don't take prisoners. They clearly come and try and dominate get into strongly with the top leaders and then try and dominate, get everybody out so that they have a very, very large size of the pie. The only difference here is that they're now coming in working, we still don't know whether the deal is on, but assuming they do come in through Reliance, I think for the first time, they're now going to come in, one, like he was mentioning, into a very large conglomerate as opposed to a startup, but they're going to compete with people, specifically, let's say Amazon, who are equally well entrenched both with technology and with expertise and with capital. So I think it will be a solid game. It will be a solid war. And it'll be a battle that all of us from the sidelines can enjoy. But to me, the bigger change that has happened is that SoftBank so far has been an investor, a large investor, big money, but essentially backing startups to go disrupt and take on the large players. This is a totally different game. And, in terms of an approach, I think the balance of power for the first time, every time SoftBank has made an investment, the balance of power has been significantly shifted in their favor as opposed to even the founders and the entrepreneurs. That's not going to happen. The third thing is, I think for the first time, it tells a very different story about India. The India story is very different. So far, we've all seen the likes of SoftBank coming again, like I said, working with small startups and see if they can create something new. here the fact that they are now looking at a large conglomerate, and conversely the fact that conglomerates in India who so far stayed away from raising capital from sources like is the perspective of India being viewed
I think
as a
we've
consumption
lost.
market.
Yeah.
As a consumption market, I think will change dramatically. The fact that people, large corporates in India, conglomerates are now willing to go and tap capital sources such as Softbank, which so far they've stayed away from, is just incredibly amazing. I think it is going to change India very dramatically as we go forward.
You know, Vaitheshwaran, you've in fact picked up something very interesting in your conversation, which when you're saying that whenever SoftBank invests in a company, the balance is really tilted in SoftBank's favor. But here we're really talking about Reliance, so to say. What does it say about how this deal is going to be? I mean, we're not speculating here, but how the Reliance Group functions, how SoftBank functions, and the impact that this is going to have on the smaller e-commerce companies here in India?
Well, first of all, I think, I'm not sure any of the smaller e-commerce companies staying relevant for a longer period of time. That's going to be a big problem. We have Walmart, we have Amazon, and now we have Reliance backed by Softbank. I think there are three really big players who are going to play. The point I meant about the balance of power is so far SoftBank is also used to operate in a certain way. So they come in, take a large stake in a startup, and then over time essentially drive the startup to do things in future such as consolidation, sign up with somebody else, partner with somebody else. Those things are not going to happen here. I mean, they will, I don't know what the numbers are, but you can be reasonably certain there will still be a very small player from an equity point of view, even though the amount is large, and the control will firmly remain with Reliance. So I think even for SoftBank, it's going to be a very different game as to how they play this. They are not used to this, and it will be interesting to see how they play this out. They're going to deal with a set of founders and management who are actually going to say, yes, we know what to do.
All right. On that note, Harminder Sani as well as Vaitheshwaran, many thanks for taking your time out and speaking to us on that ET Now news break and the impact that this is going to have on the entire e-commerce space, as well as what does SoftBank Vision Fund investment into India is really going to look like. Of course, they're betting big here on India, on the e-commerce companies, and that deal is something that is in the works. All right, let's quickly shift focus then. It's a crucial day coming in for the Chinese video app TikTok, as the Madras High Court, as we speak, will decide on the ban in the country. TikTok has again defended itself over accusations of encouraging pornography. Rahul is joining us with more details. Rahul, the Supreme Court had asked Madras High Court to close the case today. What is the latest that you're hearing on this?
Ruchi, just breaking in right now, and I'd ask our producer also to put this out. Madras High Court has gone on to lift the ban on TikTok. This is something that has just really come out now. Remember, the Madras High Court was hearing the case from afternoon. The Supreme Court had made it clear that they will have to really review the order, so to say, today here, TikTok, because TikTok said that they weren't really given a chance to address. So now the Madras High Court has gone ahead and lifted the ban on TikTok. Remember, this had sort of created a furore, so to say, because netizens also called it an act of censorship. TikTok claimed that they are putting in place various measures. They deleted about 60 million videos. And remember, India is also a massive market for them. They have a staggering number of users, one of the largest markets that this is. So again, reiterating that the ban on TikTok has been lifted really, and this would really brings an end to one big case because this would also have repercussions on the entire ecosystem, so to say. So again, requesting our producer to put this out that the ban has been lifted. Ruchi, we could move on to the guests to try and understand what this would really mean for the ecosystem. As far as
we have the
observations
guest joining us on the phone line.
as far as observations are
Right, we have the guest joining us on the phone line. Nikhil Pava is with us. Nikhil, good evening. As Rahul was talking about, the ban on TikTok has been lifted. How should one really look at it? This is definitely a shot in the arm as far as the entire argument of freedom of speech is concerned.
Yes, I didn't think that the ban was justified in the very first place, to be honest, because TikTok cannot be held responsible for any content that users put on it. And they're protected under Section 79 of the IT Act. So to start off with, the very fact that the download was being prevented was effectively censorship of those people who want to be on the platform, and it should have never been in place. So I'm glad that the Madras High Court has lifted the ban. Well, this might actually end up being good for TikTok because it's brought them a lot of attention. Many people who hadn't heard of TikTok started asking about what it is. So in the end, this might actually be to their benefit. It's called, on the internet, it's called the Streisand effect, where something that negative that happens is something that people don't want to spread. It spreads purely because it's banned. So I think this is a fairly decent development then.
Nikhil, Rahul here from the Bangalore studios, trying to understand really from you. We will have to wait for the judgment copy to understand on what terms has this really been overruled. But this is a really important case, so to say, because we're talking about pornography, obscene content. Also considering that the app is highly popular in the hinterlands, tier 2, tier 3 markets in the country. So TikTok also has to be held responsible for the measures that it will take.
Well, I don't see what the problem is, to be honest, because, there are porn sites online, and viewing porn is not illegal in India. In fact, I was in the Supreme Court a few years ago where the government of India said that we don't want to get into anyone's bedroom and we don't want to censor what they do online. So again, even just because it's pornography doesn't mean that it deserves to be banned. But as a platform, TikTok can choose not to allow for pornography, and that is their right to do so. But that's no reason to ban it. They also, I think one of the concerns that the court mentioned was about protection of children on the app. And TikTok has, since this case started, disallowing people under the age of 13 from signing up or signing up for the app, which is useful. But I do know that in the US, they had created a differential experience where there were greater safety features for children that they could use it.
Right. Nikhil, stay on the line with us. Also joining us on the phone line is Ashwini Mahajan of the Swadeshi Jagran Manch. Ashwini, good evening. Thanks for speaking to us. You were supporting the ban on TikTok very strongly. There is definitely now a relief coming in by the Madras High Court. How are you looking at it? And how should now TikTok look at dealing with the issue of child pornography, which was really the center of the argument when a lot of people were pushing for a ban on TikTok?
You see, I don't understand on what basis we allowed them to continue. In fact, here comes the government, and it is the profound duty of the government to make rules and implement them to protect cultural values, save people from disorders, and protect national security. And also the previous the youngsters. And I fail to understand why Honorable Supreme Court was so much in hurry to lift the ban. And looking at the High Court's interim order, there are many urgent matters like admissions, empowerment, pensions, development required. On the part of
Ashwini Mahajan, could you add on the part that, you've largely been propagating a ban on TikTok also because it is a Chinese app? We saw one of the petitioners also, say this before the Madras High Court today. So how big a criteria is it for us to just be banning apps because they come from a particular region really?
That is important for one reason, which I have mentioned right now, is the issue of national security, and we have already requested the government to look into this matter. That how are they dealing with the data of the those who were downloading the app, and they are seeking various kinds of permissions like locations and mic and other things. So these are small issues which must be looked into and to
Mahajan, I think we've got you on a bad line. Ashwini Mahajan, I think we've got you on a bad line, but let me take it across to Nikhil Pava. Nikhil Pava, the entire argument really that was put forth by petitioners was this was a Chinese app, this was giving a push to child pornography. In terms of the whole issue with respect to national security, how are you looking at the argument that was coming in and the impact that this would have had on investor sentiment largely?
Look, I think I've heard Mr. Mahajan on this issue before, and I still fail to understand how someone using an app is going to be a national security issue. The way he talks about it is that every app in the world that is not an Indian app is a national security concern. I would guess that the phone that he uses has Chinese components in it. So these are all hypocritical statements, to be honest, because the same people who say that these things should be banned end up using them. Give me evidence of there being a problem. Give me evidence of data being misused from a national security perspective. There is no evidence to back what they're saying. This is just rhetoric based on an ideological position that the Swadeshi Jagran Manch has taken. They have every right to their ideological position, but our country should not take these decisions on the basis of one group's ideology. It should be on the basis of constitutional, propriety, and constitutionally protecting TikTok is important for enabling free speech, no matter where in the world it comes from. The carriers of free speech are just as important as free speech itself because they enable us to exercise that right. Just because something is a Chinese app doesn't make it a concern. If everyone keeps talking about child pornography, where is it on TikTok? I've been using TikTok for the last month or so because I was quite enthused by the kind of people that are using it. It's gone to people who don't necessarily use WhatsApp or who don't necessarily use text-based apps. It's fascinating to see the various stratas of society that are using it. And I haven't seen anything that is problematic on it. TikTok actually has a team that does content moderation. So give us evidence, Mr. Mahajan and all these people who are, crying foul over here. Are they targeting it only because it's a Chinese app or it's a foreign app and it's becoming popular? Should popularity be the criteria for censoring something? I'm sorry, but there is no evidence that these people have brought to the table.
Nikhil, get that, you can't target an app only because it is a Chinese one, not that. But there are genuine issues to be addressed. TikTok has a different version for kids in the US. So should we really wait for the data protection bill? And it's only after the elections that will come by for finally some clarity in terms of how these apps will be regulated and the impact that this will have on the consumer. Because there are concerns that TikTok really has to address. And there are no regulatory clarity under the current circumstances.
And that's a failure of our government that they haven't brought in the Data Protection Act yet. And there have been issues related to protection of children. That's a part of the Data Protection Act. So I don't see why this is being raised now and why it's being raised only in the context of TikTok especially, because if you look at it, the problems that these people feel are problems are there across the internet. The same thing that you have about pornographic content is there on Reddit, it's there on 4chan, there is hate speech, there's abusive speech, it's all across the internet. So why just this app? There was also neo-Nazi content and hate speech on YouTube, for example. Why is it that they haven't gone after YouTube? look, these are problems that need to be addressed by regulation. There are actually regulations in place to address many of these problems. But taking one app down actually doesn't make any sense over here, because people will just gravitate towards another app, and then another app, and then another app. You have to have rules and regulations from a data protection perspective. That I completely agree with. We need that right now. But this is not the forum. This is not the approach that you take. Participate constructively in creating a regulation rather than saying ban everything that is Chinese or ban everything that is not Indian.
Got it. Thank you so much, Nikhil and Ashwini Mahajan, for taking out the time and joining us on this. Ruchi, so the big takeaway really is it comes as a big breather for TikTok, certainly. Remember, India, massive market, 35% of the global user base is here. Also, we have about 250 million downloads so far. So from a business perspective, they said it'd be a hit. So, it's not only a relief for TikTok, but the entire ecosystem, because if the ban would have stayed, it would have impacted every other player in the ecosystem. We will have to wait and watch what steps will TikTok take to ensure that pornography, obscene content is not available in the platform. That's something I'm sure the Madras High Court will also be closely watching and would have mandated TikTok to do. With that, it's back to you in the studio.
All right, Rahul, many thanks for getting in all those details. Definitely a relief coming in for TikTok, but one has to look at what kind of measures that TikTok will now take in a bid to really safeguard the app with respect to issues such as child pornography. With that, we're completely out of time on this edition. Many thanks for watching.